but the actual movement, the actual operation that is happening with the robotic arm. So they're controlled behind the scenes, like through augmented reality. That's what we call like augmented reality and virtual reality, all of those things. So that's the technology behind it. So the surgeon is controlling through those special equipments, but he's not actually physically moving the robot.
Thank you for joining me. I have a special guest with me today. She has over a decade of experience developing advanced driver assistance systems in the automotive industry. She currently works as an automated driving lead software platform engineer at General Motors and has a PhD in computer science. Her research spans audio, machine learning, signal processing, natural language processing, and robotics. She is at the forefront of technology and is passionate about bringing communities together through the use of AI. Please help me welcome Prabhjot Kaur. How you doing?
Good. How are you, Cornell?
Very good. I am so excited to have you here. I've learned so much about this technology called AI from you, and I wanted to open up this conversation and really share this knowledge with the public because so many people are nervous, afraid, or just don't understand, and a lot of times that leads to fear. So I'm excited to have you here on the subject of artificial intelligence. Before we get into the conversation, as we stated in our intro, you're at the forefront of technology. Obviously, you've worked hard and studied, and you've done a lot through the years to get to where you are. But where did this passion for technology start? Where did it begin for you?
First of all, thank you for the warm welcome. I'm happy to be here. And especially, I share the same reason for that you said, like AI is here. A lot of people don't know what the technology is. So there's a lot of fear. So that's one of my goals, to help spread the information as to, yes, there are some concerns, but it also has a lot of benefits. So I'm happy to discuss those here. To answer your question, like where my passion about technology started. So I'm originally from India. Up to 12th grade, I did that in India. Then I came here for my master's and bachelor's and then PhD. I come from a family where everybody is a teacher. Pretty much like all my grandparents and my parents, they are in teaching profession in science and math. So I am actually the first engineer in the family.
Oh,
Thank you.
congratulations.
Oh, thanks. So I knew I was always going to do something in science and math because my family, my parents, I had my support of my parents. But as to whether I wanted to be a medical doctor or go into engineering, that was something I was not sure about. I thought I would become a medical doctor because people around me said maybe I should do that. But I wanted to help people in some way, but I didn't feel the click. To me, I wanted to do something that combined medical with technology. So something sort of biomedical, like applications of engineering that are more medical focused. That's where my interest was originally, like back in when I finished my 12th grade. So then I came here and then started my engineering degree in electrical engineering, which was not a decision that I made. It was a decision that I started as a student, a college student. I didn't know much like what I wanted to do, whether I wanted to do physics, chemistry, biology, math. I loved all of these subjects. So I didn't know which one to really pick. I didn't want to be a core engineer. I loved the science, not necessarily just the math. So it was difficult, but I happened to get into electrical engineering. I was fortunate enough to work on research projects that involved medical applications. As an example, one of the projects that I worked with one of the professors was on the robot called the Vinci Robot. It's a robot that is able to do surgeries on patients. That was where I first started interacting with the robots. And it is today used in the hospitals. I actually know at least 2 people who have been operated by this particular robot, and they have told me good results. Like, for example, when you use a robot, you don't need to make larger incisions because the robot can just do smaller incisions. So it's minimally invasive surgery. Those are the benefits. So you have a faster recovery. How I came into engineering was from that project, just interacting with the robots, and I found that very interesting. And then I finished my master's degree, and I also got a job at General Motors as an engineer in the automotive industry. I was not into cars, to be honest. I just did that. I just went into automotive industry because I was in Michigan. I'm still in Michigan. And I wanted to just get the experience because Michigan is a state where you have all 3 automotive industries. So I wanted to get that experience before I went out to do something else. But I'm still here 10 years later.
Wow.
Yep. Then my interest into AI machine learning, it was very gradual. I knew that I wanted to do PhD from the very early on. That was my one of my dreams. So in 2017 and 2018, when I was looking to what do I want to do my PhD in, what topics, at that time, machine learning and AI was just picking up. So I was on LinkedIn, I was following a lot of people, tech influencers in this area. That's when I started learning about AI and machine learning. That's how I decided I wanted to do this for my PhD so that I can position myself for the future.
Wow, wow. As we talk about the subject of AI, let's give our audience, I guess, a good working definition of what it is. I know it can get really deep, and we're going to get into some of that, but give us just a simple working definition of what AI is.
It is really an ambiguous term, so I'm glad we are discussing this. I will not be able to give like a full definition because I don't think we have a good definition. But in short, AI, are, as we know, it's artificial intelligence. So our aim is we want to make machines intelligent, or at least we want to train them to be intelligent. We want to attain human level intelligence. So that's where intelligence word comes from. Artificial, it's a machine, so artificial intelligence. So where we want to just have a machine that is smart and can make decisions. But now this definition has obviously broadened. It includes so many things, the things that I shared in the past with you, but I can share again once we go into the details. But yeah, as in general, it's just intelligent machine.
Okay, okay. So an intelligent machine that obviously can do things that a human would do, essentially.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, absolutely.
I'm wondering, you talked about that robotic surgery. So that would that robot that is in the OR, would that be considered an AI technology?
Absolutely. So the way it works is, I'm a little bit behind that technology, but I can give you just a gist of it. So the way it works is there is a surgeon that is actually controlling the robot arms, but like behind the scenes, but the actual movement, the actual operation that is happening with the robotic arm. So they're controlled behind the scenes, like through augmented reality. That's what we call like augmented reality and virtual reality, all of those things. So that's the technology behind it. So the surgeon is controlling through those special equipments, but he's not actually physically moving the robot like with the hands.
Okay, so that means, if I'm understanding this correctly, that literally that surgeon can be in Australia and perform a
Yes,
surgery in the United
yes,
States. Oh
yes,
my gosh.
yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Ooh, okay, that's a whole nother rabbit trail. I don't even want to. We got to talk about it, but I don't know if we can cover it today. I don't want the audience to get too excited and overwhelmed. But okay, so AI is an artificial intelligence that learns and processes like a human. I'm curious, what was your first encounter with AI?
Let's see. I have to go down my memory. It's been a while. It's been 6 years since I started along this AI journey. So I would say the very first project, I would say the real project that I worked on was for the in the automotive sector. So we have this driver monitoring systems now in the cars, but we didn't have these before. These are fairly new and not all the cars have these right now. Driver monitoring system is where there's a camera that is looking towards the driver, and if the driver does not pay attention, then this driver monitoring camera can detect that the driver is distracted and can give alerts. So my first project, the real project that I did that had to do with machine learning, was with this driver monitoring system. So the project was basically, we had this naturalistic data which was collected by Virginia Tech University, and this data was collected from the real people who were driving, and they had all these equipments which were monitoring where they were looking, what they were doing with their brakes and accelerator pedal and all that. So we had all these data. So what I did was, we analyzed this data and we saw that obviously there was a correlation between where the driver was looking and what was the reaction, like whether the person got into an accident or no accident. So that was my first project, analyzing this data where the driver was looking and coming up with a predictive model as to whether the driver may get into a near crash situation or a crash situation, so that we can give them alert ahead of time if we see them distracted.
I'm thinking this technology from, I guess, an automotive industry standpoint is to maybe, I guess, protect drivers and keep the roads safe, essentially.
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
Wow, wow. I'm guessing a lot of the brands are doing it, but does it give a brand more credibility or more, I guess, status when they have this type of technology?
Absolutely. I can give you an example of Super Cruise feature. It's not fully self-driving, but the car can drive itself on a straight road with hands off. So that's a Super Cruise feature we have from General Motors, and we have other from other companies too. We have a lot of features like this. So even when you are driving, so right now the Super Cruise feature that we have, this is public information, by the way. This is not, I'm not disclosing anything.
I'm like, we're getting the straight from the press, the latest.
Yep. And we have had this feature for a few years now. So even when this you're driving, you have this feature that can drive the car itself, like it's able to. So you don't even have to put your hands or foot on the brake or on the steering wheel, so the car can drive. However, we have 5 different levels of automation in automotive industry, like 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So level 5 is when we are fully autonomous, like completely autonomous, no human intervention needed. So that's level 5. So at this time, we are not at level 5 yet because we do need human intervention. So that's where this driver monitoring system is used. Just one example, like even though the car can drive itself, but this driver monitoring system is always looking at you, like the driver, that if you are distracted, then it says, hey, give attention, put your hands on the steering wheel or something. And then the reason is that because we want the driver to be engaged. In case there is an emergency where the Super Cruise system cannot drive itself, then we want the driver to react as soon as possible. So that's one use of this driver monitoring camera, to alert the driver, or so that driver is always paying attention.
Hmm. And I must say, I'm one of those individuals who's on the fence with the driving assistant. It sounds good, but I'm like, okay, I have
Yeah.
it, but it's something I probably would never use. That's at least that's what I'm saying now. But I guess one of the biggest concerns is, okay, is this dependable? Like, how, could this malfunction? Like, if
Yes.
what kind of things could make this assisting type of technology malfunction?
Mhm. Yes. So those are really good questions and really good concerns from like somebody who would use these or want to use this but is hesitant. So all these features that we have, the features that I worked on as an example was automatic emergency braking. So this is a driver assistance feature. So driver is driving, but let's say the driver was distracted and he or she didn't see there was a car in front of him that was decelerating, and this driver was about to break into that car. So then this automatic emergency braking system would take care of those situations. Let's call it AEB in short, automatic emergency braking. It's sensing all the time. So it has seen the situation before the driver has seen, because the driver was not paying attention. So it would decelerate the car automatically and give the warning. And it does not happen at once. It first gives the alert if the driver is not paying attention, then it would do assisted braking. If still not paying attention, then it would brake for the driver. So it's not like all of a sudden. It's like it's a gradual intervention by the vehicle. So
Wow.
and we have a lot of redundancies built into this. So if something fails, there is a redundant piece of software or hardware that should take over. So there's a lot of redundancies
Hmm.
in the system.
I have to ask, and I know many people have thought this. So, is it possible? And I'm guessing maybe I would also add to that question, how far in the future? But is it possible for us to have a completely autonomous vehicle like an Uber, where we just call it, it picks us up, nobody's driving, we jump in, and it drops us off where we're going? Is that something that could be possible in the near future?
Slowly, your wish is granted actually already.
Already?
Yeah. So there's a company called Cruise. It's a company in San Francisco. They work on fully self-driving cars. So in San Francisco, we actually have a lot of taxis from this company, Cruise, that are able to, you can hail them using an app, and then it will come to where you are, and then it will take you where you want to go, fully driverless. So, and they are running in San Francisco as we speak.
Wow. Wow. Amazing. Ooh. So
Yep.
technology is moving much faster than we were thinking.
Yes. Yes, but absolutely, we haven't solved this problem 100%. For example, we know it works well in San Francisco, and I know they have rolled out or they have plans to roll out in other cities, and each area has its own unique obstacles. Like, for example, if we come to Michigan, when we have snow or like different road conditions or weather conditions, so this is not a 100% solved problem, but it's certainly, I would say, in certain regions, it is very close to 100%, but I would not call it 100% yet. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow. Oh, this is some good information. So as we look into this AI technology, the things that are powering these self-driving cars and
Mhm.
stuff, I learned from you that this technology has been around since the 1940s.
Yes.
Talk to us about what that technology looked like, I guess, back then.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. Back in the day when, because we as humans, we have always wanted to like learn how our brain works and make machines do things for us. So this quest has always been there, and starting 1940s, that's when machine learning came into existence, I would say. That's when like you started seeing papers being published in this area. So the difference between what we had in 1940s and what we have now is the way we train these models. For example, in the traditional sense of machine learning, let me give you an example. So let's say we have an image that I want to analyze, and let's say I want to identify if the image contains a dog or a cat. So traditionally, we used to, like, how would we teach this to a baby, for an example? So let's think from that perspective. So let's say we have a baby who has not seen this at all, what a dog or cat looks like. And then we want to teach the baby what a cat and dog looks like so that they can identify on an unseen image, on a new image. So that's the whole idea, right? That's the whole idea of how do we train these models to learn how humans learn. So the way we used to do it previously was we used to extract or handcraft something we called features. Like features, you can think of attributes. Like we would say, these are the attributes. If you see these, then this is a cat. If you see this, then this is a dog. So we don't need to learn the whole image. If you just have the sketch, if you know what the outline looks like, then you can kind of tell whether it is, right? So we used to extract these type of features by hand using computer programs for sure, but by hand. We used to, as humans, we used to say, I want to extract these type of features. I want to extract lines or edges or corners, things like that. So those are like what we call features. As a human, once we have decided what features I want to extract and I want to train, so I would extract those features and then I would train a model. So you have a feature extraction process, which was handcrafted, and then you are training a model, which was also a very crude form of training. They were not complicated models. So the models we can think of, like, I always like to give example of clustering because that is easy to understand. So clustering is you have a bunch of data points and you just throw that out to the machine and you say, hey, make sense of this. And then it somehow learns and it's able to cluster data that look like each other. So it's one model. It's called clustering model as an example. This is how we did many years ago. So you feature extraction and then you train these simple models. Now we have a deep learning. So deep learning is a subfield of machine learning, but the models here are so complex. And also the other thing is that we don't have to do a manual feature extraction. So that the step that I was saying where we handcraft the features and extract, that is eliminated by these deep learning models. So these deep learning models, you can think of them as like a closed box, and then you just give it data. So you just let's take the same example of like training a model to learn whether it's a cat or a dog. So you give it a bunch of images, like a lot of images. And these deep learning models, they do need a lot of data. So they're data hungry. So you give them a lot of images, different kinds, like different poses, different colors, and different sizes, so that it gets all this variety, right? So you give them all these images and you label each image. You say, this is a cat, this is a dog, this is a cat, this is a dog. You label those and you give that to the model. And then the model is trained, like it's trained over and over again on these set of images. Then finally, it's able to learn to some extent. Okay, if I see something like this, then I know it's a dog. If I see something like this. So we train it by giving examples. So that's deep learning.
Wow, wow. So deep learning is what we're seeing in our society now when we're dealing with
Yes.
certain things. Now, I'm trying to pace myself because I want to jump into
Yeah.
it, but I really want people to be able to follow us. So this deep
Yes.
learning is I believe you called it, look, I have my notes too, artificial neural networks.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Okay. So these
Absolutely.
networks are trying to work like the human brain, correct? Okay.
Yes.
So give us, I guess, some functions of, well, because the neural networks are broken into the fields or the subfields that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So the subfields are, one of them is computer, or is a computer vision.
Yes.
Okay, talk
Yes.
to us about that computer vision. I guess that's I think one that we've been seeing a lot in social media, where people have been taking their pictures and creating
Yeah.
different. Talk to us
Yes.
about how that particular process and how it learns to do this kind of thing.
Absolutely. So computer vision, like you said, deep learning is a subfield. And then depending upon like what kind of data we are dealing with, that's how these different other subfields come in. Computer vision is when we process images or videos. Yeah, so that's when we process images or videos using these deep learning models, that's called computer vision. So the example that I was sharing before about training a model to learn whether it is a cat or a dog or a person or whatever we are interested in. So when we are training the model for those kind of things, that is called computer vision. And the way we train that is through the process that I shared. So there are several paradigms of training, like there's several ways of training. The one example that I gave you, where you have images and you label those images, and that's how you train the model. That's called supervised learning. You're giving it the supervised data to the model to learn from examples. And then there's other paradigms like unsupervised. Unsupervised is where you're not giving any examples. You're just throwing data at the model, just the data. And you're saying, hey, learn something from it. So that is unsupervised.
Hmm.
These are two broad ones. Yeah.
Okay, okay. That's why those apps ask for, I believe, because I did it once just to see how it would do,
Yeah.
and it asked for so many pictures of me.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, and then it gave me like 20, 30 pictures based on these. I think it was about 60 pictures I had to submit or something like that. So that's what you're talking,
Yes.
supervised learning. Okay. Okay.
Yes. Can I talk a little bit more on that? Because you mentioned, this is interesting. Because it only asks for maybe a handful of images, like 8 or 10 or something, that are specifically your images if you wanted to give some output that looks like your face, right? But behind the scenes, that model has been trained on like a lot of human faces. So it knows what face looks like. So it's a pre-trained model on a lot of data. But now to fine tune this to your specific face, it only needs handful of images. So that's why it only asks for like 10 or 8 or some other number. But behind the scenes, it has already learned what a face looks like from a lot of other images.
Hmm. So interesting. The next subfield that I learned from you is generative AI. Now,
Yeah.
that one I'm a little I don't know much about. I could understand the other fields, but this one is something that I didn't quite get. So, what is generative AI?
Yes. So generative, like the term says, it generates. So it generates new things that don't exist. For example, you might have seen this on the internet, videos or images of people that don't exist. Like those people don't exist. Like those faces don't exist. AI has generated an image that looks like a human being, like human face, but that person actually does not exist. So it's just because it has been trained on a lot of human faces. It knows what a human face looks like. So if you ask it to generate a human face, it will generate one for you, like that has two eyes, nose, and so it's generating a new thing. So that's generative AI. But the fundamental technology behind that is also deep learning. So it's again the deep learning models, because we can make them do what we want, right? So that this is just one application of deep learning as well. And then the other examples are, if a lot of people have heard of ChatGPT. So ChatGPT is a generative AI model, because when we put a question or a prompt into the bar that tells us put a prompt here, so we are asking it a question, or trying to interact with it, and the result that it gives us, the lot of text, it's generating that text in real time. So it's not fetching it from the internet, it's generating that text. So that's again an example of a generative AI, because it's generating something in real time.
Speaking
So
of Chat GPT, since we're on that, I have to ask, because many people are excited about it, and then there's some who are a little nervous. How can Chat GPT, I guess, help us in our everyday life?
a lot of different ways. So, for example, like I have not used it as much right now. I've not explored it as much as I should, but I can tell you like how we can use it. So, for example, I was just testing it just to see what the interface looks like. And then I said, at that time, I was going to go to Yellowstone National Park. This was like a few months ago, and I didn't know much about Yellowstone National Park. And then I just put a prompt in ChatGPT. I said, can you create an itinerary for me if I'm interested in spending more time where there's wildlife, where should I go and things like that. And it generated that for me. And it was different from what I would find on the internet. So if I put the same question on the internet, right? So the internet would give me a bunch of links. And in those links, you have to go into each link and read what other people might have said or their blogs and stuff. But here it's just giving you that information. So you have less work to do. And I mean, the other ways I know people are using it for coding as well. Like there are a lot of people who don't want to code or haven't coded before, but they want to do it. You can use ChatGPT for that. And then even I know people are concerned about like kids using ChatGPT to do their homeworks and stuff. I totally understand the concern, but this is like a progression that we as a society have to make. We should not stop children from using technology. We need to upskill ourselves, like teachers, to also use the technology because this is the future. We want to teach kids how to use technology, otherwise, they will be left behind. Yes, we want them to learn grammar and everything. We want to build their creativity, but we also want them to play with this technology. I think what we need to do is we need to, within the schools, we need to also upskill our teachers so that they know what this technology is. That way, when a child brings a homework assignment and maybe that was done by ChatGPT 100%, then the teacher will know that. So I think it's a progression. As a society, we have to step in, like we have to start using it. I like to think of an example of a calculator. Like I'm sure when calculators first came, we were not thrilled, or like the parents were not thrilled. Like, okay, kids are not going to learn math, they're just going to use calculator. So I think the same way, we have to teach kids what is behind this technology, right? And then equip them to use this technology, rather than like just relying on using the technology. So that's how I would do if I had a child. I would like teach them how the technology works, but then also empower them to use it for whatever.
Hmm. Hmm. So just to be clear, so our audience is following, Chat GPT, because many are hearing about it, is a type of generative AI where it generates information based on a prompt that you to it.
Yes.
That looks a lot like Google. So is Google a type of AI as well?
Interesting question. So when you say Google, do you specifically mean Google search? Like when we
Yes.
say, not exactly. So before I go there, Google has its own AI, just like ChatGPT. Google's AI is called Bard, B-A-R-D, Bard. It does the same thing as ChatGPT. So the Google search is different. The Google search is when we put any question in there, it gives us static links. So it crawls the web, the search crawls the web and looks for the links that it thinks are relevant to our question. So that information that it's fetching is available on the web already. Like somebody has written a blog and then it just gives the link to you and you say, read this. Chat GPT or Bard are not that. They don't look at the web. They have already been trained on like huge amount of data. Think of like all of the internet and all of the books and stuff. So they've already been like Chat GPT, and we don't know the detail as to like what, but we know that it has been trained on huge amount of data. It has learned a lot of information through the training process. So that's why it is able to generate the information for us in real time when we ask questions. So the big difference is that the Google search is not generating the information in real time. It's fetching the information that already exists on the web. Whereas the ChatGPT or Bard, they have the knowledge per se. I wouldn't call them intelligent because intelligence has a different meaning. So let's say they're knowledgeable. So they're knowledgeable because they have been trained. And then they're able to generate text for us that is relevant to our question. So that's the difference.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to ask this because we are on the subject of Google, obviously. So, and I'm curious if you've heard about it and what your thoughts are. But the young gentleman named by the name of Jeffrey Hinton, who has been coined the Godfather of AI. I read a New York article that said he left Google, and his specific words were because he's worried AI will cause serious harm. Are you familiar with this story, and what exactly, I guess, is he concerned about?
Yes. Right now, the AI community, the big names like Jeff Hinton, Andrew, a lot of other big names, we are divided on this topic. I think everybody agrees that AI technology has benefits and there are concerns. I mean, there are risks because we don't have regulations as to how somebody can use this, right? So, for example, we were just talking about ChatGPT. So ChatGPT, we know it's owned by a company, so it's maybe controlled, or maybe they have more policing. I don't know. I'm just hypothesizing. Let's say we have an individual who doesn't have like good intentions, and that individual can create models to generate false information. And we know that false information, once it's out, it's hard to curb. So these are the risks, like generative AI, for example. I saw a video a long time ago. So it was Obama's face, and Obama was speaking, or at least his lips were moving, but the content that was coming out, even though it was in his voice, was actually not his words. So these are real concerns, right? And so you think about like a president saying something, but it's not actually, they didn't say it. Somebody just cloned their voice. And so these are the concerns, and these are what I'm concerned about too. We don't have like good regulations as to how to use the technology. There is no policing. There's no laws as to if you make this technology that then you will be fine. There's no such thing. So obviously we have good and bad people, and we think about like cyber attacks, right? Cyber attacks are done by smart people, but they're not using the technology for benefit. They're using technology in a bad way. So same thing with AI. We do have these concerns. So I do share that AI has risks for sure. It also has benefits though. So that's where I think the regulators or the government or the researchers that are top researchers in this field, we have to come up with some ways to be able to, I guess, in some way, I wouldn't say limit, but in some way control like how we can use AI so that it doesn't go out of hands.
Yeah, I agree. Speaking of the subfields, we talked about computer vision and generative AI.
Yes.
Next, we have NLP, which is natural language processing. So this is one that we have been dealing with in society for many, many years. Talk to us about NLP and how it shows up in society today.
Absolutely, and this is my main research area. So I love talking about NLP. So NLP is natural language processing. Natural language is what we humans talk or write in. So it's not specific to any language. It's just human, whatever, English or Hindi or Spanish. So just natural language, the language that we talk and write in. So that's when we process or have models that have to deal with this natural language, speech or text. That is what we call natural language processing. So again, the technology behind this right now is deep learning, like deep learning models. That's what the ChatGPT is also. ChatGPT is an example of generative AI, but it is also an application of natural language processing, right? Because it's dealing with the textual data. So how we have this in our daily life is, I think pretty much everybody uses it. For example, we have a phone, right? Sometimes we can give a voice command to our phone. Hey, Google, hey, Siri, do this, call this. So that is natural language processing. It's funny, my Google just woke up because
it did. You called her name, you called Siri, she heard you.
Absolutely. Yeah, so these are applications of natural language processing where it's able to understand what we speak and it's able to respond to that command. And then other examples would be the translators. So people who travel overseas and don't speak the language of a country they are in, we rely on like translation services from Google. So that's again this application of natural language processing. Yeah. So these are some handful examples.
So is it safe to say that when we're like maybe speaking to a Siri or even Alexa,
Yeah.
they're learning from us, like our language and how we're even maybe even the type of lingo that we use?
Yes. Really good point that you brought up, and I want to touch on this. So right now, we call them conversational AIs, right? We are able to talk with them. They understand most of the people in America, right? They understand the accent and everything, and also like British. So like these popular accents, they understand. I think they do a good job. What they still struggle is if, let's say, it's an accent that it hasn't heard before, like somebody from India or China or Philippines, like rest of the world whose main language is not English. So obviously when they speak English, they will have some accent. So these are the limitations that we have in these conversational AIs today. That's where my urge to have everybody like participate in the AI technology comes from. If let's say that this technology has never heard of that accent, it doesn't even know that it exists, it's hard to train it. Even like as humans, right? If we talk to somebody who is from another part of the world and they have some little bit accent in their English language, we take some time to get acquainted to their accent. So same way, so we need to give them a lot of data, and yes, they are constantly improving, and that's how they would improve if we give them a variety of data.
Wow. So I have to ask, because this is my mind just thinking. So when you have I guess a rollout of such a technology, has it already gone through a learning process, maybe by the developers, or does it just learn that fast where it can just talk to one or two people and now it has the intelligence?
It does. It certainly has gone through a learning process. We are not there yet where it's able to, let's say, just learn on the fly. Behind this AI technology, the deep learning, we don't have that. We have to train them either supervised manner or unsupervised manner before we put it out there.
Okay.
But
And
it is possible. Sorry, go ahead.
no, but that type of technology is possible.
Yeah, in the future probably, but I think we're getting there. Like for example, the example that we talked about, the image generation, right? So we have already trained it, but now to fine tune this, you only need handful of data, right? 8 or 7 images. But I don't think we have models today that have never been trained and you just put it out there to do something. I don't think we have those today, but maybe in the future, yeah.
I have to ask, and I'm not sure if this is in your wheelhouse, but I know you have some insight on it. MapQuest and these driving assisting apps that help us, I guess, our phone essentially helps us get to a location, and it's able to tell us, don't go that way, it's an accident, don't go this way, that's a speed trap. Oh, traffic is slow over there, all before you've even left the house in real time.
Yeah.
I love these applications, don't get me wrong, but there's something so fascinating to me that this phone could say what the traffic is like 3 miles away right now. Like, what
Yes.
type of intelligence is that? And how does it, I guess, know that?
Hmm. I would say here in this technology, at least based on what I know today, is it's more of crowdsourcing. For example, like we have a lot of drivers on the road. One feature that I find particularly useful is like when it gives you an alert, hey, there is a police ahead or something. So that's crowdsourcing. That comes from crowdsourced data. Like so, like somebody on the road literally gave that information to the map that hey, there's a police, and then now it's able to notify everything that's coming behind on the road behind them. So some of it is crowdsourcing, like humans are giving that data, and then Google Maps or whatever map you're using, that map is updating pretty much in real time, but not like real time because it's getting data, but then it's updating. I think some of it's like yeah, a crowdsourced data and then updating the map in real time so that we know beforehand that there is a traffic or there is a police or there is the accident or something. things like that.
Okay. So that's not necessarily an AI technology. Okay. I just want to clarify because, when we start seeing these kind of technologies unfolding, we'll start thinking, everybody will think, oh, that's AI, and that's not necessarily true.
Yeah. And the difference is that these maps, right? These maps, they're not sensing the environment. Like the map itself is not sensing the environment in real time, right? So it's not processing the data in real time. Let's take an example of the automotive industry once again, where we have these AEB features, advanced driving assistance feature. That is AI because these features are sensing the data in real time, like they're seeing the cars and they're seeing the pedestrians in real time, and they're making a decision. They have to process this and they're making a decision. That is AI, computer vision, right? Because we are processing images. Yeah, so that's the difference. So where you're processing the data, that's AI. This is not a formal definition, but just easy way to like differentiate where the map stuff and the other stuff is. Yeah, so that's how I would differentiate. So map, we are processing the data, but we are not like sensing and processing. See what I mean?
Okay. That makes sense. Wow. So good. I'm loving this. So there's one other field that we didn't talk about. We talked about computer vision. We talked about generative AI and NLP, which is natural language processing. The other field is recommender systems. So that's, I'm assuming, a type of NLP mix, maybe with another one of the.
Yes, could be mixed. One thing that I want to mention is so far we have touched on like these subfields like computer vision, NLP, but we as humans, we know that we don't sense one thing, right? So we have five senses and we're able to sense through all of these five senses, like seeing, hearing, we can do that at the same time, right? So same thing with these, where the AI is going, we are incorporating something called multi-modal setting. Multi-modal would be where you are not just processing image or text, you're processing them together. So that's multimodality. So the boundaries that we have are sort of merging. Like there's not a clear boundary, but depending upon how you solve the problem, we have different. Yeah, the recommender systems are where the algorithm recommends us something. So as an example, YouTube app, right? This is what my observation has been, and this is something I don't like. But when you put something on the YouTube app, let's say I want to learn about, let's say I heard a news about some celebrity, and then I just entered that into the YouTube app. Then it gives me one or two images. Okay, I've seen, not images, the videos. I've seen those, but then it will give me like hundreds of other images, videos of the same for the same topic. So that's a recommender system, right? It has learned from what you're looking for, and it's trying to recommend you stuff similar to what you have looked before in the past. One example. So then another example would be the Netflix. So Netflix recommends us the movies, or based on our history, or based on the interest. This is a complex field too. Like it's not just looking at what you are interested in. Algorithms can also look at what users similar to your interests have seen and might recommend you something. It depends how complicated you want to have a recommender system, but these are recommender systems.
I'm gonna ask this, and I've experienced this. I heard somebody told me that this happened to them once, and I experienced it for myself, and I was like, wow. And I'm curious if this is an AI technology. It's on the lines of a recommender system type thing, but literally, I was talking to someone about a brand or something that I was interested in person, not over the phone, but the phone was in with me. When I opened my phone and went to, I think it was Facebook, I immediately saw an ad for this very same brand that I was talking for. I've never searched for this brand or anything. Is that a recommender system? And also, is my phone listening to me? Is that what it?
Yeah, yes. Unfortunately, yes. This is where it gets a little tricky, right? Should it, shouldn't it, right? I mean, should you want technology to always be listening to you? Maybe not. Like it depends upon the person. But yes, it is a recommender system because it somehow got the new information out of you, and now it's able to advertise product or thing that you might be interested in. Yeah.
Wow. Ooh, okay. So there are some things that you talk about and you I guess, encourage people to do. And one of them is to, as it pertains to AI, is to participate. You want people to participate in this AI technology. How so? Well, first of all, why is this important to you, and how should we be participating?
Well, let's take two examples. One of the examples that we shared before about the natural language processing, right? Because we have a diverse population. If we don't comprehend the diversity that we have into the models will be biased. They will work for something that it has seen before, something it's been trained on before. So that's one example. So another example I'll give you, which is no longer a problem, but was a problem when the facial recognition came into effect a long time ago. It was biased. It was able to recognize like faces of white men 99% of the time, but the other faces it was not able to identify with that much accuracy. And that was because the data that the models were trained for was prominently it consisted of images of white men. So that's what it knew for sure, yes, this is, but the other it wasn't sure. So these are the kind of biases we can have in the models if we don't give them the diversity of the human population that we have. And then how can we participate? One would be to not be fearful of the technology, like to explore it with curiosity. I would say have curiosity and try to use the technology. I know it can be frustrating sometimes, like where the example that you just mentioned, where it probably was listening to you and it gave you an advertisement about the product. It sounds creepy. So I understand all those nuances, but I would say we do need to have that diversity, and that diversity comes from the people. It wouldn't necessarily, so for example, let's take an example of like myself. Like I know I'm from India, so I know all the languages spoken there, and I know English, and I can make a connection, like train a model to do all of those things. But I think about Africa, like a lot of countries, a lot of languages. Personally, I don't have that knowledge. So only the people from those communities know, right? So that's why we need to like have this technology like be everywhere so that it can learn a better model of the world.
Mm. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It won't be
More
limited.
comprehensive.
Yeah.
Yeah, because otherwise we will just create disparity, right? We will have these technology for English speaking communities, or I'm just giving an example of natural language processing, but think of like other applications as well. So we will have these technologies for one set of community, but then the rest of the world is like left behind. So there will be more disparities. So that's where I feel that we need to push these technologies out there. If people are like fearful whether they should or shouldn't use, I would say that's where we need to educate. We need to educate like what's behind this technology, like is this sentient or things like that. These questions are really real questions, but if we educate people like what's behind this technology, I think some of the fears go away.
Mm-hmm. I'm curious, maybe within your field specifically, or just the broader, I guess, area of AI technology, what was, I guess, the mission for, I guess, the deep learning? I understand the machine learning has been around since the 40s, but this whole deep learning, is it an attempt to, I guess, make human life more seamless, or what do you think the intention is behind the technology?
Yeah. Yeah, I think the intent behind artificial intelligence is to have machines which can do some actions for us. Like, for example, like manufacturing jobs, right? Those jobs are hard. Like people who do them by hand, I mean, it's not an easy job, right? So I think the original intent was to help humans take care of some of the mundane tasks or repetitive tasks so that we as humans can do something even more fruitful, like something more creative. I would say that was the intent. And then there's also curiosity of teaching machines to be smart. But the I would say the at least my intent would be to have this technology so that humans can be more productive and can do tasks that involve more creativity. It's just pushing the human intelligence to another level. So now machines can do this. Humans, we can stretch ourselves to do something even better that the machines can't do, like creativity is one example. So yeah, the intent was to help humans not do certain things that probably should machines are better doing.
Mm.
Yeah.
With that in mind, is it is it possible, and I guess that determines on maybe the ethical use and all that kind of stuff, but is it possible for these AI technology or robotic systems to take over the job market in some industries?
Yeah, yeah, that's a good question. The way I look at it as, so there are some jobs that we know will be eliminated by AI like right away. And then there are some jobs that will take like at least a generation, like one generation of human population to go away. So like, for example, let's take example of the chat GPT, right? Chat GPT can do right typing stuff and all those things. So it might take writing jobs, right? But then there are some jobs like self-driving, like the trucks, right? So in the trucking industry, now we will have self-driving trucks. But those self-driving trucks, we can't have those jobs taken away right away because we are not there yet. So we will have this generation of humans which we need to teach how to work with the technology. And then next generation would not need this job. We will have to upskill them or teach them some other things so that those jobs, whatever is in the future, are what they would be doing. There is a concern, but some of it is not just immediate, like immediate job cuts.
Mm-hmm. I have to ask this, and I guess you can answer it the best you can. So in a world of AI, say for instance, we're 10, 15 years from now, what would you advise a person that wants to have a, a sustaining career? What would you advise them to study?
Yeah,
What would you
yeah,
advise them to go into?
yeah, that's a good question. And it's a difficult question because I have some cousins who are just finishing their 12th grade as an example. And the question was like, should they go into AI because AI is the future? But the answer is not that simple because AI is progressing so fast that by the time they finish their degree, maybe it won't be as valuable as it is like right now. So
Mm,
I would say engineering degrees or science, every degree is valuable, but we need to learn how to integrate technology. So I think upskilling constantly and being able to willing or creative to use the technology to our benefit, that's what we need. I would say upskilling is more required than as to like what degree should I do.
mm-hmm. So finding whatever it is that you're doing and finding a way to
Yes.
integrate AI.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
As an example, like I have a friend and she is using AI to write a children's book
Wow.
because she's not an artist. So she's giving prompts to the AI to create images that she can put into her book. So just being creative with like how to integrate technology.
I love it. There was a recent article on LinkedIn that talked about the pros and cons of AI. And this is a quote from that article, and I'm curious to your thoughts. It said, humans may become more reliant on AI as it becomes more complacent. It
Mm,
might replace a lack of independence and a decline in critical thinking abilities.
yeah.
If they rely too heavily on AI for decision making, people might lose the ability to make their own decisions and be less able to adjust to changing circumstances. What are your thoughts on that quote?
I believe it's a bit too extreme. I don't believe that we as humans would become totally lazy when we have AI. I like to think it from like historical perspective. Like when humans didn't have all this technology, so we were doing other things with hands, right? And then slowly we started to get the technology, and then we relied more and more on technology. But as humans, we didn't become lazy, we found other things to do. So I don't necessarily like to think of it this way that with AI we're going to become more lazy. I think we will find other ways because that's just our brain, right? I don't think any human can just sit idly and because that's just a boring life. So we
Mm.
will find something else to do. That's just what I feel.
I understand. Wow. Well, you have a personal mission, and I want you to share. I've heard, I've been privileged to hear a little bit of it, but you have a personal mission when it comes to AI, particularly learning. I think it's the NLP division where it will learn this. Think it's your native
Yeah.
language. So, talk to us
Mhm.
about this personal mission and how you're going about it.
Yes. So I am trilingual, and my parents, a lot of other folks back home, they don't necessarily speak English. So when they come here, it's hard to like understand, or even not even just that. Even like let's say I hear a TED talk that happens to be in English, and I want to share that with somebody in India who does not speak English. Right now, they won't understand if I send it to them, right? So that's where things like translation can help. But then also in real time, so let's say you have two people who don't speak the same language, but they share interests and they might become friends if they're able to communicate, right? But now you have this language barrier. Yeah, you just cannot talk to each other. So that's where my passion is right now, like to build like real time translation systems, speech to speech. When I say speech to speech, the difference is that the translation systems that we have today, what they do is, so when we speak, for example, let's take an example of a Google Translator. So when we speak, it understands what we are speaking in English, and then it transcribes that into a text, right? Then it takes that text and it converts that text to a different language. So let's say Spanish. So it does the translation from text to text. And then there is another system that takes that Spanish text and converts that into Spanish speech. So it's a cascade approach. So there is a latency and there is obviously error propagation that's happening through each of the subsystems that the cascade has. So what my research is to do direct speech to speech. So I'm speaking English, but the translation, it will happen from the speech to a speech in another language, so that when you have two people speaking different languages, they can still communicate. Like we can have an app where you can deploy this model to, and you can use that app to just communicate with anybody that does not speak your language.
Wow. I love that. I love
Yeah, so
that.
it's just a matter of like, for me, it's personal because I feel that we have a lot more in common, like different communities of the world, but because of the language barrier, we are not able to see those similarities. To me, it's very personal to bring communities together by breaking these language barriers.
Yes, I agree. I agree. So when we look at all of these fascinating things that AI can do, I mean, it's really a great asset to us as humans. Obviously, we have the issue of ethical use and maybe data privacy, but what can we do as the users of these technologies to make sure that maybe government sets some regulations or whatever? How can we be instrumental in that?
Yes, I would say what you are doing is absolutely a critical step, like spreading this information amongst the communities who are not directly doing research. It's not even about research, it's about just knowing that this technology exists, right? So there might be somebody in part of the world that does not know that ChatGPT exists, but if you tell them, they might do something about, they might use it. So I think one thing is just awareness amongst the general population that what these technologies are and what kind of data they collect and how the data is used. I think once we have that awareness, then the population, like the we people can say, okay, this is not how we want our data to be used, or this is, we want to be compensated for our data. We want the companies to pay us for our data or something like that. So that I think it comes from the awareness first.
Hmm. Wow, wow. Is when speaking of data, would you say, and you may not know specifically, but like social media platforms, are they collecting our data? Would you say?
I am pretty sure they are, but I
Yeah,
don't know. Yeah, but I'm
can't
pretty sure
confirm.
yes, because that's where they give like advertising, very specific advertising to our needs because they're monitoring our data.
Hmm. Wow,
And
wow.
as yeah, and I would say another thing, we talked about awareness, and the other thing is that even with the chat GPT and things like that, they do have a disclaimer or something that goes along. It says this is how your data is being used and stuff. I think it's important to read those things more now than ever. Um,
Hmm. Wow. Well, Prabhjot, I am so glad that you joined me. Any last, I guess, remarks or words of wisdom or anything that you would like to share?
No, thanks again for inviting me. It was a pleasure talking to you, and I really enjoyed your questions and diving deeper into the technology. I think we covered a lot of it. I think we are from like 1940s to like 2023. I think we have covered maybe not 100%, but 90%. So thanks. My only advice would be, or suggestion, I would just encourage people to just be curious about the technology. And I know there are concerns, but just be curious and interact with it. Because if there are concerns with the technology, that's how we would learn. So example, the one I shared with you about the bias in facial recognition technology, right? So the only way we knew that there was a concern with this facial recognition technology was because somebody who was not represented in the training, when they tested this model, it didn't work on them. So it's only when we play with this technology, we understand their limitations and we can make it better.
So true. Well, Prabhjot, my friend, I appreciate you joining me and sharing your expertise regarding technology, AI, driving, assisting systems. We appreciate your work and continue to do this great work in spreading the message of AI. Thank you so much for joining me. Well, guys, this is our show for today. The truth about AI, all the information here was given to you by someone who is working in the field and researched it. So please take this information, use it, and by all means, don't be afraid, because it is here for us and it is here to serve us. So how we use it is what will determine our benefit. So thank you so much for joining me. Like this video, share it with a friend, and I'll see you back here, same place, same time next week. Take care.